Let's talk about the ratings. Have you paid attention?
I don't know anything about. I've been counting figures. The numbers that I've been dealing with were action figure numbers.
So to put this in context, this show, which aired on the 31st?
Yes.
Second to last NXT show on a Wednesday night. So we're one more week of the direct head-to-head competition, and then AEW has Wednesday nights all to themselves. Before we even talk about ratings, what do you think that means? Are they going to pick up another 200,000? Where do you think the number's going to go without NXT there?
I think they'll probably pick up 100, 150. They're not going to do consistently 1 million people, I wouldn't think, or elsewise they'd have done it by now. Competition or not, they'll pick up the people that were on the fence. A lot of people that have been watching NXT just don't want to watch AEW and I don't blame them. And there's probably some vice versa. But I think they'll pick up the 100 or 150, maybe 200,000 that are fence sitters and could go either way.
So again, next week, the final head-to-head on a Wednesday night. It's also an NXT TakeOver night 1. So it's a pretty big show for NXT. AEW announced matches, and once again, they're just announcing matches. I think once again, we get a 6-man match featuring one of the people that have been in a 6-man match, one of the teams from the last couple of weeks, Darby Allin against someone no one knows, follow-ups on all these things that don't make any sense. So this past week, the 31st, the ratings, and we could talk about what they've been for the last month since Shaq. NXT 654 and 0.21 in the 18 to 49 demo, which is the best they've done there in months. AEW 700,000, 0.26 in the demo, which I think is the smallest gap there has been between the two shows in the key advertising demo. Since Shaq was March 3rd. That did 934,000. The next week after Shaq disappeared, so did the audience. Went to 743,000, so almost 200,000 less viewers. So 743, then 768, then 757, all within a range. This week, 700. 700,000.
There's no need to watch the program on a weekly basis because you've seen one, you've seen them all. It all looks the same. It all's endless beatdowns. Every match has a jump start. Every match has an afterbirth. Every match has multiple people outside on the floor, if not multiple people in the ring. Every segment has an out-of-control riot and some type of heat-ridden beatdown. Every group is mad at themselves and breaking up, and new groups form so that they can get mad at each other and break up too. Just repeat the notes. You can take, then the matches look the same because they do everything they know every time they get in the ring. So what is there to watch that you haven't already seen?
Well, like I said, although I believe, and it sounds like you believe, the bloom is off the rose for a while now, the question's going to be how much of an artificial bump, or I guess you shouldn't even say artificial, how much of a bump will they get now that they'll be unopposed on Wednesday night?
So now you're not trying to say that they're going to all of a sudden say, oh, now we're getting a couple of 100,000 more viewers, so the show is better and it's growing. They're not, they realize that they're getting viewers that have already been there just watching the other show.
I don't know what they'll say because they twist everything to fit their narrative. When I said a few months ago after a show that I thought was awful that I understand why people like the matches, but anyone who pretends like the formatting of the show and the booking of the show is any good is nuts. That's when Dave Meltzer went at me on Twitter and said, how could you say that after this week's episode? You need to pick your spots. And, you start seeing the other things. He was Booker of the Year, this and that. Hey, listen, I talked about it last week on the Drive-Thru. AEW does a fantastic job, maybe the best job of any promotion ever, of converting a large portion of their audience, in this case, an eighth, sometimes even better than that, into paying customers 4 times a year for $50
for the pay-per-views. Yeah.
Fantastic job. But less
actually,
people...
hold on here a second. Because if you apply the logic of traditional pro wrestling, every territory that was dying was on its ass. The people that were left were the people that had been there from the start, the people that weren't going to not watch wrestling, the people that are going to watch every wrestling they possibly can, and they were the ones that were going to buy every ticket and etc. When you have, it's not fair to say, when the WWF had 10 million people watching on Monday nights, that they didn't convert over 1 million to buy their pay-per-views. It's not fair. It's not the same thing. You have the most devoted, diehard, willing to live and die over this shit, and for some reason they like it, small niche audience already watching the program, so you're naturally going to convert a much higher percentage of that number to buy the pay-per-view than if you had a legitimate large audience of 5 or 10 million people, and a lot of them would not be as dedicated.
It's still not easy. TNA was never able to do that, even at any of their good points. They were never able to convert a large
they never
portion.
tried to sell anything, because Shitstain's whole thing was do everything on television, and the pay-per-views were mostly meaningless. So that was...
Here's the thing about Best Booker, and again, I point out that this show is booked horribly and the formatting sucks. And not only do I stick with that, I double down on that.
We not only say that, but we point out why and give specific examples that everybody can see. So I don't know why this is in question, what we're talking about.
Here's my question for you. Let's take the last pay-per-view, for example. What did it do? 150,000 buys, somewhere in that range?
I'll take your word.
All those matches, Moxley, Omega, barbed wire explosion match, Young Bucks versus, I don't even remember who they wrestled, to be quite honest, off the top of my head.
It's all the same.
All those matches, every match on the show, whatever match you want to look at, the alley fight with Sting and Darby. I don't think the week-to-week booking helps any of those matches. I think the people who buy those pay-per-view events are like, wow, I really want to see this match. I want to see what's going to happen in this match. I want to see the Young Bucks do their thing. I want to see the exploding ring. I want to see the matches. I don't think there's anything in the booking. I really didn't want to see that match, but they did this great angle on TV.
I'll go further. I think that people, when the matches are first announced, want to see them more than they actually do when the matches come about after they've seen the build. I think that makes you want to see those matches less, because they've already given you everything you can. If the heel has gotten heat, the babyface always gets tons of revenge before you have to pay to see it, or vice versa. What
are they going to do with the Inner Circle and Pinnacle? War games? What are you going to do now? Why would anyone want to see it?
They're not going to have a match now.
Yes,
they can't have a match now.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
It's done. It's over. There's no reason to have the match now. That's why I'm saying, but you did all this for 2 weeks, didn't even get a fucking pay-per-view out of it. It's done.
No way. I guarantee it should be based on, this is the angle you do at the end. I guarantee there will be matches. They may even do, it's 5-on-5. They may even do war games with this one, because they've been wanting to do that for a while. They were waiting to have their fans back. And of course, that was when Cody and the Elite were still on the same page when they tried to do that. But no, they're going to still try to do it. They're still going to try to have a match where Jericho gets the revenge on MJF that he didn't get by giving him a swirly and throwing him
When's their next pay-per-view?
I don't even know. I'm not sure.
Well, I assume it's more than a month away, because they just had one recently.
Yeah, I would think so.
They actually thought that it was a good idea. As you know what this reminds me of? I'll say this, and we're going to close it up. It reminds me of after Kane initially debuted a Hell in a Cell and fucking dropped Undertaker on his head, Shitstain wanted Undertaker to chokeslam Kane through the announce desk the following week on Raw. And that was October. And they weren't going to have a match until March at WrestleMania. And that's when I had to look at Vince McMahon. I said, how the fuck do you think we're going to keep them apart for 6 months if they're already choke slamming each other through the fucking announce desk the week after the debut? And that's when Vince McMahon had to turn to Russo and go, just calm, basically in Vince's way, calm down, son. The grown folks are talking, and we're going to take this slow.
Next pay-per-view is May 30th, Double or Nothing.
Okay, then that's almost they had 2 months that they could have let the Pinnacle ride that heat, and they could have had Inner Circle come back and try to get even, but be foiled at every opportunity and put a little more heat on it, and then do their goddamn war games at the pay-per-view, and it would have made sense, and then you could flush MJF's head down the toilet. But what they've done now is they've started a story and they've finished it. And now they've got another 16 chapters of their murder mystery when everybody already knows who did it and the guy's been caught and sent to prison. How are they going to fill the rest of the book? Fucking morons. Anyway,